Okay, so Elaine, you always talk about intuition being our birthright. Can you talk about that? What do you mean by that?
I would love to. You know, when I started studying this work, if you had given me one of those psychic tests, you know, the star, the cross, the circle, and you're supposed to tune in, I would have flunked it because I would have tried to think what it was.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's not about thinking, it's about linking with the divinity within us. And all of us are hardwired. It's our birthright. If you look at being around small children, they know truth, they recognize it. And when not impeded by us grown-ups who are so worldly, they will usually choose well. And feel it. And most of the young children until about 4th grade, you have tremendous intuitive happenings. When I taught school as a reading specialist, I taught over the years children from kindergarten through 9th grade, and until grade 4, all kids had experiences, whether it be deja vu, you know, memories from past lives, knowing things that were going to happen beforehand, seeing angels, loved ones who had passed on.
Wow.
And what happens in the Canadian and US education system, in grade 4, most of the right brain activities go away. Less playground, less music, less art, more left brain digital training. And that's when it starts to recede.
Yeah.
And when I started training in this work, you know, there was a presumption that you were starting as a rookie and you knew nothing and you had to be trained. And if you were lucky in the paradigm that we were being taught, that you would be able to develop these gifts if you were worthy. Well, I found out over the years that, and I never really believed that, I believed that we all had it. And so back in the early 80s, my husband, Mark, and I started trying to figure out how can we accelerate this? It doesn't have to take 12 to 15 to 20 years. They used to tell us, oh, it takes 20 years to be a good healer or a good medium, and you can't be both. And they said, you're either clairvoyant, clairsentient, or clairaudient, which means clear hearing, sight, or feeling. But you can't have all three. It was never logical to me. It's just, we didn't have the tools. We didn't know how. And so we started searching for some of the modern learning techniques that were, and accelerated learning techniques that were developing in the 70s and 80s. And we blended them with the ancient ways of being taught and some of the ways I and other people in traditional spiritualist trainings were taught. And so then we sent out this flyer wanting to test the theories. And so what happened was, with this flyer, we told people right up front, we don't know if this is going to work. This is a total experiment, but if you want to go on this ride with us for a weekend, you know, please sign up and we'll all see what happens. And if these theories hold water. Well, 17 people came to that class in our living room.
In your living room it was?
In our home in Lilydale. And only 3 of them had ever meditated before. Everybody else was a rookie. And Friday night, we taught them a meditation technique that I had learned from Reverend Wendling, and Spirit gave us extra parts of it, and to take people deep into the silence and the transcendent. Not to sit that night for messages, but to go into the silence and to be one with the divine. And then the next morning, we taught them how to do hands-on healing. And there's a story with 2 of the people who, these wonderful women who were rookies, worked on each other. And after the exercise, we were all debriefing, and one of the women said, you know, not much really happened. I didn't feel anything except this little current that went through my spine and down one of my legs. Well, I got a call a few weeks later from her. We didn't know she was already scheduled for hip replacement surgery. And guess what? Her doctor said, we don't know what happened. Maybe the x-rays were wrong, but you don't need a hip replacement.
Wow.
And it really happened.
Wow.
And nobody was more surprised than me.
Yeah, that was good confirmation that what you were doing worked, right?
Right.
That's pretty good.
And not only did it work, but you didn't have to train for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that we all come with this. Some of these gifts are closer to the surface, some of them aren't.
Mhm.
And then in the afternoon, we worked on intuitive message work. Some of it with the students was mediumistic, where they were bringing through evidence from loved ones who had passed on. And some of it was messages about people's lives. Sometimes it was only one sentence. But by dinner time on Saturday, everyone had given verifiable messages, and nobody was more surprised than my husband and I. We were
Wow.
whispering to each other, this is really working.
Can you believe it? High five, probably, right? Yeah, yeah.
And
that's exciting.
And
now.
then on Sunday, we reinforced and deepened the ability to use all these techniques. And so that was the first in November of 1987. That was the first rendition of this class. And of course, we refined it over the years.
Yeah.
And without exception, over the years, it works.
Yeah.
And people don't have to suffer about, it's not about worthiness.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not about that you have to sit for years and years and years.
Right.
Would you say it's because you're connecting them back to, I mean, you're teaching, but you're connecting them back to what they.
If I could use this piece of paper, where are we on camera?
You gotcha.
So if we could use this piece of paper, there's a book by Madeleine L'Engle. Some of you will be familiar with it, called A Wrinkle in Time.
Love that book. Yeah.
And she uses the metaphor in that book about taking what she calls a time wrinkle. And so you and I have been taught that the shortest distance between this point and this point is a straight line.
Yeah.
And what she said with taking a time wrinkle is you bring those two times together. And for me, that metaphor really describes what we do, because what we're doing is we're bringing our awareness and our gifts, both from our childhood, from before we came in from spirit, to the now.
Yeah. We
don't lose it. It's just, there's a saying, the world we pay attention to is the world that we perceive.
True.
And wherever we look, we see what we're looking for. So if we're not paying attention, we're going to miss those cues.
Right. And so in class, you get them to pay attention to that wrinkle.
And we give them specific exercises and techniques. You know, it's not random. When I sat in meditation class to develop my mediumship and my intuition, you know, I felt like sometimes I was waiting for a bus or Christmas or Godot, and because you never knew, you know, and you were told when you're worthy, spirit will let you have it.
Yeah.
And it was so random, and you could receive something that would be accurate one time and then totally be off base the next. And we found out that we can consciously choose to drive our nervous system and our intention, and our body being our instrument, that we could set our intention and actually look or feel or hear in specific ways, where if I'm doing a reading and let's say Angie's mother comes to me.
She does.
And which I have.
She has, yeah.
and all I have to do is shift my awareness and my intention to in a specific way, physiologically and intentionally, and I'm hearing her mother like you would hear me right now, or looking in a certain direction, and I would get pictures. And so we've taught people specifics so that they can do it on purpose and repeatedly.
So you broke it down with a lot of tools. So what was that class called back then?
When we first started, it was called Channeling in You, and then we changed it to Spiritual Insight Training, because channeling didn't really describe what
you weren't doing channeling. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You were doing so much more. So, and it's called, I know what it's called now, Spiritual Insight Training. Right. Yeah. And it's amazing. Karen's got it right up there and you have that coming up.
We have that coming up.
And it's very exciting because it's in person, right?
Yeah. We're going to do this. During the shutdown, during the pandemic, we realized there were too many components that we could give the techniques, but we couldn't really deliver the quality that we wanted with this course just online. So we're real excited. We've combined part 1 and 2 so that people don't have to travel as much. And it's going to be so much fun
much. And you know where it's going to be? We're actually, if you notice behind us, is the Fellowships of the Spirit sign, and that's actually where we are.
Right.
Is right now we're doing this interview from Fellowships of the Spirit Lakeside, and let me tell you, you look out the windows and you see the lake. It's the most peaceful, beautiful place ever. So on Friday night, do you still start out with meditation?
Oh yeah, we start with meditation.
And why is that important?
Because this isn't about being a psychic vending machine to bring through spirit. This is about going to God, creator, infinite intelligence, whatever words you want to use for the divine, going within and opening our hearts on another level so that we, as the vessel, whether it be for healing or for giving messages, are in a spiritually centered place where we can connect not only with loved ones, but from a higher consciousness, not just giving a name, though names come.
Yeah.
Not just giving evidence, but evidence with compassion.
Yes.
Because as I was taught, and I strongly believe, unless it's about healing, none of it matters. Unless it's about healing, just giving somebody the facts doesn't often bring healing. And so if we start from the place of healing, then everything transforms. And most of the readings that I've done over the last 50 years, spirit comes through. But there are times like when I've read for children, like one time I was out at the stump and the teacher and me, when I used to work with little kids, always loves to go to children. They're just so full of life and potential. So,
so excited there.
So here's what happened. Probably about 8 years ago, this young man walks into my room, my reading room. He had an appointment and he sits down and he says, "Elaine, before we start, I have to tell you that when I was 9 years old, my parents brought me to the stump and you gave me a message, and I didn't know anybody who had died. But so you didn't bring anybody through who had died, but you talked to me about how I had been bullied when school had ended and how my best friend had run away, and that it was important for me to look within and forgive him because he was just a little boy like me and scared, and you gave me some thoughts on how to deal with bullies." And so he said, "You maybe spent 3 or 4 minutes with me. And when you finished, I turned to my parents and I said, please write that lady's name down. When I'm old enough and I have my own money, I'm going to go to her for a reading." And he said, "I just graduated from college and I'm here for that reading." And I almost cried. I was so touched that this little boy would keep my number in his sock drawer. Now here's the rest of the story. He hadn't mentioned, when he told me his story from years before, that his grandmother had been with them. During the reading, his grandmother had long since passed. During the reading, his grandmother, who had been with them that day at Lilydale, came through when I read for him as an adult.
Wow.
Now,
that's amazing.
And so
I'm getting chills as you're talking about that one.
So spirit communication is about healing. It's not about being a mediumistic or psychic vending machine, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. And it's something like that you changed his life. Yeah. That he went through school of spirit. That's you too. Yeah. You were the one that did it, but that's for sure. And I 100% agree with you that it's about healing. So that's why we do meditation first, is because that's taking us to that place. And then that's where we're coming from,
spiritually centered.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's heart and spiritually centered approach to mediumship. And that doesn't make doing it another way wrong. It's a choice. It's just a choice that we've made in terms of how we want to do this and how we want to train people.
Yes, 100%. So what else will they learn if somebody comes to spiritual insight training? I have to say, I love spiritual insight training, and I wanted to talk to Elaine about it because that's where I got my training. And I think I've gone to it many times because I came back and I ended up going to the school, and I wanted to talk about the school too.
Okay. Well, what else people learn that's central to the whole theme of the course is that it's not just about what you're going to do for others. Mm-hmm. It's about us being training to pay attention to our own higher power and our own higher self and our own intuitive links or hits. And instead of just thinking, oh, I just thought about my maternal grandmother. Well, I wonder why I thought about her. No, you'll know that her presence is there.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Or here's the other one.
Because you have tools, right? You give them give us tools so we can recognize it.
And train yourself to recognize it. And also on a very practical level with using your mediumship, paying attention to the guidance. For instance, let's say you're out doing errands and you have to go to the market and the cleaners and other places, and it makes more sense to go to the cleaners before you go to the market, but you go, nah, I don't want to go. And then you get caught in a traffic jam. Or when you do pay attention and then you get to the market and you run into somebody that you haven't seen in a long time that you've been thinking about.
Yeah.
And so those are like not life-changing situations. But if we master the small things, mm-hmm. then when the big issues come up, mm-hmm. we will trust them. Yeah. And that's the key, so that we live our life in the flow of the divine. Doesn't mean we don't have challenges, but it means that they're mitigated in how we recognize and how we're prepared for them.
100%. So developing your intuition is, I mean, you can do readings for sure. I mean, I love doing readings, but you can come to spiritual insight training, develop your intuition and improve your life. Oh yeah.
And people have come from all walks of life. We've had people who, everything from people who teach school to who are in the medical field, lots of doctors and nurses and physical therapists and chiropractors.
Yes.
But also we've had heads of corporations take these courses, and people amazing. Who would be, let us say, well-known in the political arena who have taken these courses, or people who are in law enforcement. And it's amazing how they use these gifts to better not only their life, but the lives of others.
It's amazing. Yeah. So, okay. So you start with meditation, right? And then there's energy healing too, right?
Yeah. On Saturday, we start with that. And it's an approach that was given to Reverend Wendling when she was in trance one time from Spirit. And
so that means spirit kind of coming through her, right?
Right.
Okay.
And so what happened is, she taught us, and now we've taken that as a springboard. I believe just techniques are tools. They're not a contract with spirit. Mm-hmm. And there are many different tools. And we teach this whether or not somebody does other healing techniques. This is another tool for the toolbox. Mm-hmm. And just like, there are times when allopathic medicine is what's needed. Sometimes it's physical therapy. Sometimes it's spiritual healing. Sometimes it's Reiki. Sometimes it's this. What's the tool?
Yeah.
And we encourage the students that this is just a bridge. This is a starting point. It's a very powerful technique, as you heard with the woman whose hip healed, mm-hmm. For one small example. But it's one of many tools, and it's about us taking responsibility of saying what tool is going to be most helpful or most healing for the person I'm working with, or perhaps what do I need to focus on to empower my life, which of course will ripple out to the people that I'm with.
Yeah, and as you're healing, you feel the healing energy yourself too, right? That's what I always feel with it. So, how excited are you that this year? So, Elaine started this program with co-founder Mark Thomas, right? Her husband, and they taught together. When I came to the SIT classes a long time ago, I learned from Mark and Elaine, and then through the years there have been other teachers because Mark did some other things, right? We had Don Scott and some different people. But how excited are you that this year? Guess who's back?
Yeah,
Mark, right?
Oh, it's just going to be fun. We did this a couple of years ago too, one time when somebody else couldn't come because there was illness in their family. But it's going to just be so much fun to do it. And I love how we have such diverse population. In any given class, there's, as I said, people who are total beginners on a conscious level to people. One woman we had in the class, and this has happened with others too, she'd been a medium and a healer and a teacher all her life, and it was 43 years of professional work, and she took the class, and it's designed that wherever we are, we go to our next levels. So she got as much out of the class as the rookies. That's important because I was doing readings when I came also. And I learned, I can't even believe how much I learned and how many tools I got. So why is it important? So we have SIT 1 and then there's SIT 2. So why take both? For the first portion of it, we're laying the foundation and giving people tools that they can go out and use even if they only took part 1. And the second class, which we've now integrated with the first, we go beyond that to polish and deepen and enhance using these tools for deepening the awareness and also the effects and the accuracy. And also in the second one of the things that I teach is how to do past life readings, which is fun. And in the second part, Mark goes into teaching the structures of consciousness so that you understand what even more deeply what's happening both in meditation and with healing and when you're doing mediumistic or intuitive work. And adds another new technique for meditation that takes people even deeper into the silence. And so it's, it's a wonderful thing. And we originally kept the 2 weekends separate, which worked fine. But then we had a number of people, especially people whose work schedules made it hard for them to take off too much time. So we blended it together and found out that it was just as effective and as much fun. And it's a lot of fun too. That's important to say too, because you learn a lot and you have fun. You meet great people every time. So Marty's on. And hi, Marty. And Marty says, SIT gives form and format to what we instinctively know. Oh, I like that, Marty. I'm going to use that quote. I like it too. That was a real good one. So when people come, so I'm looking at the dates, August 19th to 22nd, and that's parts 1 and 2. Or September 9th through 12th. And that's also parts 1 and 2. And so people get to stay overnight, right? And, all the details of that are on our website. And the thing is, we start the class on Thursday night and we at 7 o'clock, and then we end it on Sunday at 4. Now, there are some of you out there that have already taken part 1 and you want to take part 2. We've made allowances for that. Oh, good. So you can do that. And so you can register just for part 2 and then come in part way. Okay, that's good too. And they can stay. I just wanted to say that fellowships and where Fellowships of the Spirit is right outside the gates of Lilydale. So they can go into Lilydale if they want and stay there or walk around on breaks. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So talk about the school then, because I know there's the spiritual insight training, and that's a prerequisite to go to the school Healing and Prophecy. Well, how that came about is after we taught the first set of part 1 and part 2, people were saying, well, what about part 3? And I used to kid around with people and say, part 3 is life, go live it. And then And then we got the idea that what would it be like if we brought other instructors who were already well known in their field of healing, sacred space, different forms of healing, different approaches to mediumship and intuitive and spiritual development and spiritual studies. What if we brought people in who were really excellent at what they did already? And we used some of these techniques in the modeling process for an extended in-depth training. And that's how the school started, where it's a 2-year program and people come on mostly on weekends, though there are a couple times that it's during the day, and
mostly on weekends, which is really nice because you get here on a Friday evening and it ends at by noon, usually on Sunday. So it's nice.
Yeah. And since we've learned so much about doing things online, we reformatted the school for this coming year, and we're so excited about it because the last class that just graduated in May, we were mostly online with them during their training. And so we added things such as we have over 30 years now of video that's been digitized, and we have a number of faculty members who were incredible and never wrote books.
Yeah.
And so what we did for this class that we're going to be doing now in the school is we have between 1 and 3 hour clips of them teaching that in between the times when they're here training, they're getting to view that. And
that's awesome.
And also our mentor staff, everybody, there's about a 4 to 6 to 1 ratio of staff to students. So, people don't get lost in the crowd. There's a lot of individualized attention because we're all unique in the way that we learn and the way that we grow. And if I could tell a kid's joke.
Yes, you can, of course.
And our older son, who's now in his mid-40s, when he was 6 or 7, he used to walk around with his joke book and come up and ask us, things. And one day he said to me, "Mom, how do you catch a unique bird?" I said, "I don't know." And he said, "You have to sneak up on it." And I started laughing. And then he said, "How do you catch a tame bird?" And I said, and he said, "The tame way." And, we're all unique birds.
Yeah.
And we are variations on a theme. So it's not one size fits all. I was told if you didn't do it this way, you'd never develop. And that's not true. It's not true. We're all variations on a theme, and that individualized attention and just tweaking it makes all the difference.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah, I love that. So Karen, Karen's our tech person there. She's behind the scenes. Can you put up how if somebody wanted to sign up, right? They have time still to sign up.
Oh yeah,
right?
plenty of time.
Yeah. But I want Karen to put that on screen or put that in comments. And if you have any questions too, ask. So we actually, Elaine, we have Karen Schultz. Took sit 1 and 2 in May 2002.
Yes, Karen.
Wow.
Of course, I know Karen.
Yeah, that's
great.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm just looking to see if we have any questions. My granddaughter and I were just talking about Madeline Langle.
Langle.
Okay, A Wrinkle in Time 15 minutes ago.
Oh, I have to just tell you about children in the class. We allow children to come, but they have to be with a legal parent or guardian. But the youngest person who took the class was 8 years old, came with his father, and he brought his drawing pad and his crayons and his markers. And when we were doing the message work portion, he would sit and talk to the person and draw.
Wow.
And this one woman that he read for, he said, "You had a strange big house growing up." And he said, "It didn't look like it was balanced. And the door was off center, and he drew the windows in the door, and it was exactly in stick figure form."
He drew it. Wow.
He drew it. And then he said to her, starts drawing a brown and white cow. And he said, "And this is a picture of your pet cow, Bessie, who you love so much. And she's here to tell you that she still loves you."
He had that too. That's amazing.
Is that amazing?
That's
so
amazing.
There were really 2 components, and all weekend he was doing that. He went on to, he was 8 years old at the time. He went on to get a PhD in Oriental medicine from a major university and has done healing work. But he's used his gifts in the medical field.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I remember I brought my granddaughter once to a class that you taught. Do you remember?
Yes.
That was years
Bella.
ago. And yeah, Bella. And she was probably about 12, I think, at the time too.
Right.
And I wasn't going to have her give messages. She came with me because I was helping you and I was babysitting her. And I think it took her probably about an hour. And she said, I want to give messages too, Grandma. And I said, okay, are you sure? And she said, yep. And she did pretty well too.
That's right.
She did really well. So, yeah. So anything else that you can think to tell them?
It's fun. It's easy. And it's part of who we are. And
it's our birthright, like you said.
It's our birthright. And the thing is, it's not about necessarily doing this work professionally. There are many people who've come through our program who do this work professionally. And many of the registered mediums in Lilydale are graduates of our school.
Yeah.
But it's about changing how we deal with our natural gifts and how it can maximize and streamline and enhance our lives and the lives of other people.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to know that too, that readings are so important. I love doing them, but what you're talking about is important too, just as important.
And here's an example. One of our graduates who is now in spirit was an endodontist. And his practice was in a small city where this was not something that was really accepted, especially for somebody in the medical profession. And one day he had done some major bone work on this woman's jaw. And afterwards he placed his hands on her shoulders. He said, we're just going to rest here for a minute. And then she turns to him and says, oh, Dr. Joe, I can feel the energy coming through your hands. He said, oh, go on, because he really wasn't ready to blow his cover where he lived, right?
Yeah.
And she said, no, you can't fool me.
Yeah.
She said, I can feel it. And then she said to him,
he probably got a lot more clients after that.
He probably did.
Probably did, yep.
And then she said she was going for a checkup before having surgery because she had a detached retina. And she said, would you put your hands over my eyes? And he did for about 5 minutes. And a few days later, when she went for her appointment, the retina was not detached anymore. She didn't need the surgery.
Yay.
See,
so it works.
And
story after story, right?
People in corporate America are using these gifts to enhance, teachers and just being able to pay attention.
Yeah, that's for sure. So Elaine, Michelle Griffin. Hi, Michelle. I may have missed it if you mentioned it. What classes are offered on Zoom?
There are a number of classes coming up this fall that will be offered both on Zoom and live.
Yes.
So we're going to offer both options simultaneously. Angie's got one coming up with us on past life regression.
Yes, I'm excited about
Tom
that.
Crassley, who is one of our directors here
Excellent,
at the school, is doing a day-long class on the inner workings and enhancing the chakra energy and how to use that in healing, both for yourself and other people.
Mm-hmm.
We've got another class coming up that has to do with mysticism and mediumship. And that one, I think, will probably be only online. But if you go to our website, there's new ones that are coming up on our website all the time. And then there's another one. This one's only in person, and it'll be on Columbus Day weekend. And Tom Crassley teaches this one every year, and people come back over and over again. It's called Restructuring. And it's a self-healing tool that you can use on yourself, but also one where you can use it with other people. And, sometimes, to use the old metaphor of like an old potato or flour sack where there's stitching at the top, and you can either pull one stitch at a time or you can reach around the side and pull the whole pattern. And one of the great things with restructuring is you can pull the whole pattern and things transform. So, we've got a lot coming up. Not all of them are up on the website yet. So, stay tuned and look. And I know Karen's got put up there, how to contact us.
Yes. Yeah. So fellowshipsspirit.org. It's 2 S's. So that's important too. So you can go on there and check out the spiritual insight training classes, the school, and any other classes that are coming up. Right.
Right.
The spiritual insight training classes are in person, and it's worth coming and making the trip and being here in person for those. Right.
Yeah. We even had a woman come from Africa who had to like walk, I know this sounds crazy, but she had to walk like 50 miles to get to the city where she could apply for a special visa. People.
And she came out that
she came all that way. I took part 1 and part 2.
It's so much fun. It's fun to be here. I haven't even been in the building in a while, and I'm so glad you said let's talk in the building, because the energy here is amazing, and you'll love being here, and just the people that you meet too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, everybody, anything else?
I don't think so. I think we covered it.
I think we covered everything. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I'll be back next week, and I believe either next week or the week after. Actually, Karen's coming down, and we're going to have a golf cart, and we're going to drive all around Lilydale and give you a tour of Lilydale. So we're excited about that.
That's great.
Yeah, and spiritual insight training classes coming up. You have 2 opportunities to take them, right? In August or September. Yep, there's Karen putting up. Karen's good at that. As soon as we start, you can tell she's listening, right? That's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing. And my name is Reverend Angie Hewett Abt, and I'm a registered Lilydale medium. And my show is Spiritual Discoveries, and we are on we took a little break, but we're back now on Fridays at noon. And Elaine, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you all. Thomas. For your kind attention. It's been fun.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, so much. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it very much.
Take care.
All right. Bye, everybody.